2024. Thank you for coming. And this is a session, Speedy Delivery, Enhancing the ILL User Experience with OCLC Express. And I can if you guys panelists can introduce yourself. And the session is recorded. It will be available later after we do the captioning. So not immediately after this, after the conference, but within a week we'll get an email. And panelists, if you could go ahead and start. Thank you.
All right, hello, welcome. I wish on our side we could see you all. We're going to introduce ourselves first. I am Joanna Stankiewicz. It's spelled like Joanna, but it is pronounced like Joanna. I know this is kind of complicated, and I did put it on the screen in case anybody wants to say my name. And then I am the head of access services at Drake University. And I'll pass it to the next person who wants to introduce themselves.
Yeah, I'll take it. So I'm Michael Cares. I'm the electronic resource librarian for Jessup University.
And I am Susan Yak. I am the interlibrary loan person at Moraine Valley Community College.
All right, so I think on our next slide, there we go. We've got a short agenda for today. So we've done introductions. We're going to go over each of our challenges and opportunities, how the OCLC Express programs presented a solution, how we set those up, and what sort of results we saw. And then we have some scripted questions that each one of us as a panelist appreciated about the other's presentation as we were kind of crafting this. We wanted to share those thoughts with you. And then we'll have time for general questions and answers from you all. So I think our next slide, we'll do a slight overview or a quick overview of what the Express program is. So the Express program, it's part of OCLC's resource sharing services. Libraries involved in this program agree to fulfill copy requests within an average of 18 hours. And OCLC evaluates library response times every 3 months and invites new libraries to join. Currently, over 1,000 libraries are part of the program. And while participation is free, not all libraries lend materials at no cost. However, OCLC helpfully offers a list of free lenders that are part of the program to help you avoid those article exchange fees. And now we're going to talk a bit about each of our universities. So again, I'm from Jessup University. So our private Christian university, we have about 950 undergraduates and 350 graduate students. We got 2 campuses and 1 library branch. As of the time this data was gathered, we just recently added a 3rd campus and a 2nd library, but that doesn't impact the data we're about to look at. We get about 50,000 books, mostly in religious studies, psychology, and leadership, and we have about 800,000 e-texts. And we have 1 library staff member that's running the show for us year round.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Yak from Moraine Valley Community College. Moraine was founded in 1967. We're the 2nd largest community college in Illinois. We're located in Palos Hills, which is a 20-minute drive from Chicago, and we have 2 campus extension sites. Our student population in spring of 2024 was 11,500 students. I am the one and only full-time ILL staff person, and I also have other job duties. I do have a backup person for my time off. We are a world share in an Elvis library, and Koha is our new library system. It's a little over a year old, and the only reason why I mention that is because Koha doesn't integrate with WorldShare, so I do a little bit of cross-referencing to make things easier for me. And we've been an Express member since 2021. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Joanna, who'll tell us about Drake University, and we get to see their adorable school mascot. Joanna, take it away.
Thank you, Sue. If there's an opportunity to show the bulldog, I always take it. So Cole's Library, we have multiple libraries on campus, but Library is the biggest one, and it also serves most of our undergraduate population here. We're a private, mid-sized university. We in the building here, we have special collections, archives. We're also a federal depository library, which, as many of you know, just means we have a lot of things we're trying to get rid of. And our collection, our physical collection is quite large. So is our ebook collection. We do not have, and part of the narrative and like talking about Express, um, part of our narrative here at Coles Library is the reason Express works for us is because we actually don't have anyone assigned to ILL. We don't have an associate, we don't have a librarian. This is something that ended up being split up between two of our librarians, and then we have our entire access services team helping with ILL. Okay, so the next little bit, we're going to quickly cover some of our challenges, and then we're also going to talk about how Express helped us find solutions.
So I'll take it first. So Jessup's problem is that our interlibrary loan workflow was way too complex. Relied on several platforms, and there was a lot of manual request entry. But we had staff turnover, and it ended up being a blessing. It allowed us to kind of rethink and rebuild the entire process with the goal of trying to qualify for OCLC's Express program. Because when we started, we didn't. Sue?
Thanks, Michael. At Moraine Valley, I was mainly looking to improve customer service. I even put that as one of my goals on my yearly performance review, so I would commit to it. So the goal was to improve delivery times and have 0 unfilled article requests. And I have achieved that since becoming an Express member. Our students want articles fast, and they will not use interlibrary loan if they have to wait 2 or 3 days. They just won't wait. I also needed to save time spent doing my ILLs to focus on other job duties that I've recently undertaken. Then I had to let control of choosing my own lender string and trust that automations would do their magic. This was huge for me. I was very skeptical. I've been working in ILL for 25 years, and it wasn't easy for me to reach out of my comfort zone, but I wanted to try. And I remember the first time that I submitted an automated request. It was for one of our history instructors who has requests that are tedious and take some time to research. We've all had those. I submitted the request, went to grab a quick cup of coffee. By the time I came back, sat at my desk, I saw the red alert button. The article was filled. I sent it to my patron. He emailed me back with one word: wow. I knew what he meant. I was wowed too, and I continue to be wowed. That's my story. Joanna, let's hear yours.
So I think getting out of our comfort zone is something that we experienced at Drake. We went from having a dedicated staff member to having our not only our staff cut, but also our budget in general cut, which meant that every decision that we were going to make was going to be impacted by those two things. And I know that probably many of you are experiencing the same things. Many universities are cutting their library budgets, as well as staffing, and trying to figure out how to continue and like how to sustain a high level of customer service when it comes to the services we're providing and that the campus is used to is a high priority for a lot of us. Our users were really accustomed to having really fast delivery because we went from having that one person, and then all of a sudden we for a while there we had no one who was doing ILL. I think we had like a part-time student who was helping out, but managing the change and like breaking out of what we traditionally did in libraries. We have a lot of librarians and staff who have been at Coles for 20, 30 years, and they were very used to doing things in a specific way. And like Sue talked about, trusting the automation and trusting the system to do the work for you has saved us a lot of time, and we'll talk about that when we talk about solutions. But that was our problem here at Kohl's. We had to manage a pretty large change that was impacted by our staffing and our budget.
All right, we're on to solutions. So again, for Jessup, joining Express was our goal and not affixed to a specific pain point. Again, but to qualify, we had to really improve our turnaround times. And we did it by rebuilding the entire workflow around WorldShare's latest features. Going through it quickly, for borrowing, the open URL form provided us a single, reliable access point for students to get requests into the system. From there, the automated request manager could take that form input, build the lender string, and send off that request. And on the lending side, what really mattered for us qualifying for Express, integrating our holdings via collection manager provided 1 to 2 click access to fill most article requests for the libraries. And then on the print lending side, real-time availability made sure we only saw book loan requests we could actually fill. Sue?
So getting my supervisors on board was easy. Express is no extra cost, so there were no budget worries. A setup seemed easy enough for me to do, so there was no getting involved with IT or anything. I simply set up custom groups, as titled it Express Elvis Libraries 2024, because I always include the date in my whenever I create new groups so that I know when things needed to be updated. And I usually do that twice a year because OCLC sends out the new lists of Express members in January and July. I reached out to support just to make sure that what I did was accurate, and they were very helpful. And then I created a marketing plan to get the word out to the college. Joanna?
So for us, like I said when we were talking about what our issues and challenges were, we had to kind of look at our ILL process from the bottom up. So completely take down the processes that we had and rebuild them. We knew around the same time, we also, on top of it, so we lost a few employees. We actually transitioned to Tapasa. And also we're trying to figure out how to fill our ILL requests. But we realized that, and I see the questions that are coming in. There are questions about like the incomplete citations and like how automation works, and we're going to address that. But what happens with Express is it does make things a little bit more simple. So you're not doing the entire process on your own. We also made ILL a shared responsibility. So I know this is something I've talked to other like academic libraries, and this is something that a lot of them struggle with. So if you don't have a single person responsible for ILL, how do you make sure that everything is getting done, that we're communicating, that we're taking care of issues? And so we had to think about how all of that was going to be completed. We ended up making all the ILL responsibilities part of 2 librarians. Um, they were just additional duties with ILL. Between Tapasa and Express and everything else that we were able to do, it became really clear that that ILL position went from being a full-time position to something that can be handled by a few people. And we also integrated all of our how many, I think there were at least 3 students that we trained up. We also cross-trained the entire unit. So all of the librarians within Access Services, and there's 4 of us, are now trained to do ILL. And the other thing that we really had to make sure we were doing well is communicating it. Sue's going to talk about her marketing and communication plan a little bit later, but that really does make a difference. Like talking about what Express is, talking about how our processes work now. One of the things I learned through this transition is that often librarians who have been in the field for a long time are very wary of anything that might cost them money, and often they do not believe that things are free. And I did see that Sue posted a question here that says, "It's no cost, it's free. Express is free," and that was really important for me to communicate. Let me see. Okay.
All right, so I get to kick off implementation. So as I said before, like joining Express was our goal. And by, again, rethinking and rebuilding how we did ILL, we qualified in 4 months. And so we did this kind of in 3 stages. So January was all about laying the foundation. So I deployed the new OpenURL form, to all access points. I made sure Collection Manager, talked with WorldShare and all those selections were up to date, but we didn't actually change how requests were filled. We were still sending article requests through our secondary platform. So in February is when we started, using automations and filling live requests. So we did a base rollout of automations and we tweaked as we got feedback on turnaround times and how articles were moving through the system. And then in March, we completed the real-time availability setup for our print lending request. And then in May, you got that nice email from OCLC saying, "Yay, you qualified." And so, I mean, it was a stage rollout, but it wasn't difficult. It just took a bit of tweaking in the middle there. But as you said, it's not hard. It just takes a little time. So I can go on to the next slide. I think I've got, oh, yeah, some marketing, Sue. I'd love to hear about marketing from
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Michael. So we were excited to get the word out to our college campus. The first thing we did was we posted an announcement about Express on our ILL library webpage. I included the Express badge in my email signature. And then I created signs and handouts in Canva that we could use at our pop-up libraries, at any events that we had. And I asked our marketing department to revise our bookmarks. And I asked them to prominently display the Express symbol on the top of that bookmark. And I use that bookmark I put those in the books that are ILL. And we recently just had a outdoor Student Fall Fest. We had a library table there. I include any ILL handouts that I have to make sure that students are aware that there is an interlibrary loan service that is free to them. I also asked our reference librarians and our public service librarians to promote Express to our students when they are asking for research help. I personally emailed faculty working on their dissertations. Reaching out to faculty led to other partnerships within our library. We host annual in-person library events with some of them, and one of the faculty authors wrote in her acknowledgement page thanking me in the ILL department for supplying her with the research she needed for her book. That was really special to me. And then we have social media postings, but we schedule those right around the end of the semester when we know student research papers are due. So we tried to get it out there however we could. Joanna, how did you get your team on board with Express?
So one of the things I really like about our conversation is that each one of us has a different perspective on Express. So for me, it's definitely a little bit from like an organizational perspective and making sure that we are addressing our workloads, but also still, like I said, providing and sustaining a high level of service. So we took a collaborative approach. Every single person in the access services team was involved in kind of thinking about what our strategy is going to be. We assessed and updated position descriptions. That was really important to my team because all of a sudden, it wasn't just like duties as assigned, which happens often in libraries. I feel like we just kind of go, we need to take care of it, so we're just going to do it. Instead, we made sure that we added those responsibilities to their position descriptions. My access services librarian, and in this situation, Michael actually does a lot of these things. I have someone on my team that does this, kind of figured out and updated a lot of our holdings, made sure that our automation processes were in place. I talked about this already, but I talked to the dean, and so this is interesting. We um, were able to join Express pretty much from the get-go. So from the time, I think from like 2021 or something. But the person who was in that position prior to us made the decision not to. And so then the dean thought that like Express cost money, and those sorts of things. So it actually gave us an opportunity, once a staff member left, to kind of look at it. And we pretty much after that joined. Again, I cross-trained on the entire team to make sure everybody knew how to do ILL, including our students. And then I think what Express did for us, and I think just in general what automation did for us, is allowed us to sustain and be consistent. So when there's a lot of chaos and you're trying to manage change on your team, and it's not just ILL, it's staff that's leaving, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to continue to support like your research responsibilities on top of like someone else going, right? Um, Making sure we have some stability. And I think the way we do ILL and Express helps a lot with this, has allowed us to um, to continue things for the most part as they are, or at least demonstrate that we can continue to be resilient in difficult situations. Oh, here we go. Data.
All right, so let's talk a bit about JESIP's results and outcomes. So as you can see, rebuilding the workflow, it allowed us to drastically increase our capacity to handle requests, and it greatly improved our turnaround times. So a couple notes on the data. This first table, again, just looks at the volume of requests. And while it's not ideal to have to list a transition year, we had to start this comparison with our transition year in 2023 because between 2022 and 2023, we integrated open access content into our discovery layer, which dramatically reduced our number of ILL requests. So it really kind of skewed or hid the impact of what cleaning up the workflow actually did. So that's why I had to take a look at, 2023 and 2024 and not 2022 and 2024, which would have been ideal. And even in this like streamlined, offloading, open access content environment, cleaning up the workflow, making ILLs easier, increased, our borrowing and lending, output by almost 30% in the case of borrowing and just over 20% in the case of lending. Turnaround times, because we're just looking at WorldShare specific data, I was able to go back to 2022 and we're able to see the progression of a rollout. So what I enjoy about these turnaround times in the second table, in spring 2022, it's our unoptimized WorldShare process. So we're seeing that borrowing, it's taken almost 3 days, and lending, it was taking us almost 2 days to get articles out the door. In spring, when we just made the process more efficient but didn't have access to Express, we were able to borrow things a bit quicker just because they got out the door quicker, and our lending turnaround times got dramatically better. And that great turnaround time for lending is what got us into Express for spring 24. And now we can see where having access to Express has allowed us to get our borrowing requests, filled even faster. And again, our lending turnaround times are still staying well under where they need to be to stay qualified for Express. And this is all with one staff member. I expect if I were to look at this, in spring of 25, they're going to be even better once we bring students on board to help us. And would you like to talk about your results, Sue?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Moraine Valley's lending and borrowing turnaround times. First, let's talk about lending. So lending is defined as the time you first receive a request to the time you mark it shipped. So my average lending time for January through July of this year was 6.97 hours. That's well below the 18 hours. What I do and what helps me is I turn on email notifications in service config because I'm always in Outlook, and it helps to it helps me to make sure that my requests are filled quickly. I have other job duties, so my first priority is filling student requests. So with those email notifications turned on, it helps me do that, so that when I see that there's an incoming request that has been filled, I can send it off to my patron quickly. I'd also like to point out, although I'm the only person that actually processes ILLs, it's a team effort. I can't achieve these results without my electronic resource manager providing me with licensing agreements for our database articles. My systems manager updates certain system configurations that I don't have permissions for. And my technical service coordinator is currently working on updating our serial holdings in OCLC. That's a huge project to undertake. So reach out to any coworkers who can help you achieve your goal. And that's how efficiency happens at Moraine. Now, borrowing. So borrowing is defined as the average time from request placed to request mark received. My average borrowing time for January through July of this year was 18.92 hours. I think that's pretty good. And it's important to note that almost 100% of my copy requests each month were filled by Express Libraries. Now you can also see 18.92 is just an average. Some months were speedier than others. March, I had 14 hours. It's just an average that Express is looking for. I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Most of my requests are filled the same day before I go home. If I submit a request at the end of the day, it's most likely there in the morning as soon as I come in. And don't think that you can't be an Express member because you're not open on weekends or you have limited hours. I'm a member, and you can probably become a member too. Express is just looking for average hours. So just contact OCLC to find out. Joanna, can you share with us some impressive facts about your library?
I don't know how impressive they were, Sue, but it is. I think the kind of like my whole thing is about sustainability, right? We are sustaining our level of customer service while continuing to address our staffing and budget concerns. So, kind of like Sue said, we average around 18 hours, and I saw one of you in your Q&A asked, what's the qualification to be what the criteria to be accepted into Express. That 18 hours turnaround time is an average. And like Sue said, there you can definitely check if you qualify. But our one of the, I think, more important things that has come out of Express is that it's a back and forth relationship. So like, because you are filling things at a higher rate and you have everything set up to be able to do that, you're also receiving items at a much quicker rate. So since we became an Express library officially, we were filling requests 32 hours quicker, which is pretty impressive considering we don't have um like, someone like Sue to be able to help us process all of these items. It's just like nose goes, whoever can get to ILL does it. Um, and so we do our average borrowing times. You can see them on here. I'm not really gonna go through all of that, but it is, again, it's an average. So prior to going to moving over to Express, I think we were at like 30 hours. And then after we joined Express, we were filling at 18. Our turnaround times for copies were at 18 hours. Okay. Our next part of our presentation, we're going to talk about some questions that came up for each of us, specific to our experience with Express and ILL. So you've heard some of those pieces already, and we wanted to think about what made each one of our situations unique, because we know some of you might be experiencing those things as well. And so these questions are directed towards that. And the first one, I believe, Sue, you had this one from Michael.
Could you elaborate on your process for integrating automations?
I would love to. I think the first thing I would like to point out, like, if you have more questions or wanted to learn more about how this is done, Jenny Rosenfield with OCLC has a session on this later today. So I'll give a shout out to Jenny there. But from Jessup's perspective, integrating automations, it's pretty straightforward. You set them up, or you can set them up based on any mix of material type, request type, so loan a copy, item age, or departments, which you can kind of use to work around for campuses. And then you just define your lending string on how it builds those lending requests for you. And most of the adjustments is actually going to be in how do you define that lender string. That's where most of the trial and error is going to happen. So you can build those lender strings with a combination of, OCLC defined and controlled profile groups. These would be groups like Elvis, or if you have a consortial group, they probably work with OCLC to maintain the members there, or library defined groups, which they call, custom holdings groups. And that's what you would use for things, say like Express, or if you lend between your 5 campuses, you could use, holdings groups to manage that. But you can mix and match these in your automations to build a holdings path that will control how your lender strings are built out. The automated request manager will go through each of those groups in the order that you set them and give you a final product that's attached to your request and then sent off to libraries. So you actually have a lot of control about how that lending string is built for you. So here's an example of what Jessup uses for our holdings path. We have a custom holdings group. That's the Internet Archive. So I'll hit the Internet Archive first. I've got another custom holdings group. That's the free Express lenders. And then it will add libraries from the OCLC defined and controlled Elvis group. And then I go to a OCLC controlled group for our consortia, which is Skelk. And then I go back to another, customs holding groups. That's all of the Express libraries. So I'm trying to get it free if we can, and then pay if we have to, while also trying to get it as fast as possible. But again, we have to control those costs.
Mm-hmm.
And Sue, we don't market, how the sausage is made for ILL at all. So I'd love to hear more about why you thought it was important to market Express.
It was important for us to get the word out because interlibrary loan isn't well known to our students. They don't know that it's free. They don't know that it's something that they can take advantage of. So I try and reach out to whoever I can. Whenever there is any library service promoted, I make sure ILL is there, and that Express program is the topic of the conversation. I think it's important for our faculty to know that too. And I am all about partnerships and reaching out. And I think what really helps is our librarians promoting it. But when people actually put in an article request and they see how fast it comes back, they're really impressed. They are wowed by it. I am too. I said that before, but but I am too. And I think that's really the selling point, because then I'll get repeat users that are new because it's so quick. Joanna, can you discuss how you manage the workflows of your team? Are there areas where you believe improvement could have been made?
Mhm. I think I talked a lot about this part already, but I think one of the things I learned about like our workflows and fulfilling the responsibilities of ILL is that each one of my team members approaches it a little bit different, and I need to give them the space to do that. So, for example, I have one librarian who will get on and just like knock out a bunch of requests in like an hour. That's all she'll do. She'll just sit there, take care of all of them. And then I have others who just do one or two, like as their day progresses. And initially, because we were trying to figure out how to maybe only have two librarians or two employees do the work, we kind of split it up between lending and borrowing. And that didn't really work great because I think everybody can do both sides pretty easily and effectively. The other thing I think I would have liked to improve was our communication about ILL and Express. So I think Sue does a really good job. And she's told you guys about this already, how she does talk about like what it is and like promotes it to students and tries to get more students to use it. We don't necessarily do that. We just assume that students know what it is. Or if they have an FYS, or if they have like an introductory class of some kind with us, they're going to learn about it. And I think we could do that better. And I think part of the problem too is then we don't do a great job of communicating what the workload looks like to the dean or to other people, on our team, and they don't really know what we're doing. And so they sometimes think it's magic too, right? Especially if Express, it's just there, and they get it in an hour, right? And so it's making sure that they understand that there is work that happens in the back, the automations that everybody's setting up. I mean, a lot of that work took multiple librarians to figure out, and OCLC will also help you with that. I think we actually have someone's information towards the end. Okay. So, oh, and automations will work their magic. It's just a reminder that once everything is set up, it does really help. So the next portion of this is the Q&A. So I think maybe the easiest, I'm like looking through some of these questions. I think maybe the easiest thing to do is we'll just kind of read these out loud, what we have so far. And we can answer them. I think between the three of us, we should be able to answer most of these questions. Michael and Sue, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can't see what's in the chat, so just read out to me, Joanna.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let me see if there's anything new. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to go from the top. These are the ones that were most upvoted. So does OCLC check your own library's holdings to ensure that you are not sending an article out that you could fill in-house?
I can answer that one. For articles, they do. What it will do, it'll send it to review, and it will provide you the link of where it could be filled. In our experience, because our forms are integrated into our discovery layer, so they would have to obviously they would have seen the full text first in most cases. So it does attempt to it, but it kind of depends on, is the OCLC knowledge base actually up to date, and is it correct?
Yeah.
So usually when I've seen it flag it, it thinks that yes, we should have it based on what the knowledge base says, but there's a lag with the vendor of actually loading in the database, so we don't. So we often have to then manually send it, but it does try. And depending on how students access your ILL form, that could be very helpful to you, or it could just be an indication that the vendor is a little bit behind loading the full text they should load.
Okay. Okay, Melissa asks, many of the citations I get are incomplete or wrong. How do the automation rules deal with that?
I could take this one first. I would say the automations, they can't do a ton with that. Um, it's more about where you're getting your source data. So where, again, where redesigning the pipeline helped us is OCLC's open URL form, it can partner with, you know, basically custom links in your discovery layer to ingest the metadata. So you should just be getting better requests to start with because there's no manual moving of stuff. If your source record in your discovery layer, if it's got good metadata, that good metadata is captured by the form and sent into OCLC to work with it. However, if the source has got bad data, I mean the form captures the bad data. We do have a database that is notoriously bad with their book metadata, and we still get a funky looking request, and that's not OCLC's fault. Uh, that's more the source's fault. But I will say, less being able to automate more of that capture, you're going to see less bad metadata. That's been our experience.
And I will say, I just clean up the citation. I clean it up so that it looks like that makes sense. Because I feel the more information you put in that automation, if you put the year, if you put the volume, you'll get it back quicker. So I do the extra work of cleaning stuff up. I know that's aggravating, but that's how otherwise it's just going to come back unfilled, and I don't want that.
I will say OCLC is working on that. They're making improvements to how automations match to OCLC records, as long as they've got those base identifiers. But as we all know, if we get a request that's just the title, I mean, that's just a rough request. But
Yep.
OCLC is working on it. They are getting there, and I think in the next couple of months we should see improvements on how automations take what the form captures and how they match it to OCLC records. So it's a good start. It's going to get better, but again, the source has to have something to work with, as we all know.
And for those of you, I see the chat about how frustrated you are with this. I will also add that my librarians very like that. This is something that really frustrates them. They are going in often and kind of like Sue, just cleaning things up, trying their best. So I don't. Yeah, like Michael said, hopefully this will get better. Okay, so the next question isn't really a question. It's just through promoting digital, promoting Express. So it is free. There is no extra cost for it. I'm going to mark that one as answered. The next question is, how customizable is this program? Can you set different branch locations as off limits for Express? For example, we have a high capacity offsite storage that we only pull from once a day. Turnaround time might be more than 18 hours for this location.
It's a good question. If you were going to do that, I think real-time availability could do that, because if memory serves, when I set this up almost 2 years ago now, they they asked for a list of like, what are your statuses and location codes, and I think you would really just deflect those requests, so you probably wouldn't lend those to other libraries. That's probably about as much as you could do. I think as far as where WorldShare's at right now, I don't know that it could be that granular. I'm sure something like Tapasa probably could, but I don't think base WorldShare could do that from what I understand. But that'd be a great question for Jenny in her session.
Mhm. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Do bad citations get flagged somewhere so you know what to clean up then? So do the bad citations get flagged?
No, in my experience, we noticed a bad citation when the ARM automated request manager wasn't able to actually execute the automations. Like it couldn't find enough lending partners, which for us, I think they couldn't find one partner. So usually they get sent to review because ARM couldn't do anything with them. And that's how we find them.
Okay. Let's see. The next question is, would you recommend that a public library district with few article borrowing lending requests also pursue Express? I
Yes,
feel like, yeah, I was gonna say my answer to that is why
wouldn't
not?
hurt.
If you have
Yes.
less articles to fill, you'll fill them a lot quicker.
it's free. Like I say, it's free.
Yeah.
It's free. Go for it.
And
Okay.
again, if you set it up correctly, workload's not going to be a problem. Like the system will give you the link, you click it, download it, attach it. It's really easy to fill those requests.
If I can do it, anyone can do it, believe me. And I set it up too. And I was proud of myself for setting it up. But yeah, I would really strongly encourage you, go for it.
Okay. Our next question is, does this work with CLIO2 software?
I'm not familiar with Clio
Yeah.
as much, but I would imagine, I don't know. I assume if it's interacting with WorldShare, maybe I would set up the automations, directly in WorldShare, and maybe Clio would just grab the request when it's ready. I don't know enough to know how that interfaces.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think some of these questions that have been asked, you guys might get better answers later on today from another session, or at least maybe more clarity. Let me take a look here. Oh, okay, we did. Okay, we do have some resources for you, which I think are going to be helpful. And obviously, this is our slide deck is shared somewhere in this platform, so you'll be able to see it. So if you do have any questions or would like some support, there are some resources posted for you here. And then just all of our information. If there is anything else we can help with or clarify for you all that doesn't get answered through some of the other sessions, like one of the things I love about a good conference is that you're like building on, the information, you're building on your knowledge. There's one more question that came in. Are you guys okay with me backtracking a
Sure.
little bit? Okay. So, how many institutions are cross-listed between Express and Rapid?
I don't know that question. I don't know that answer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know this either.
Okay. I was like, that's Enwell. I was Enwell asked a really hard question. We'll have to check into that and answer it for you. If it's not answered by anyone else later today. Okay. Is there a way for us to open up so people can ask questions out loud if they want to? I'm not really sure if that's a possibility. But if we do have a little bit more time, if there's anything else that anybody would like to ask or chat about,
Can you hear me?
we're here.
We want to ask in person.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions or comments? Oh, we have a few, just a minute.
Hi, we use OCLC for stats and stuff. How does the Rapid one keep stats and stuff and help you guys with that side of things?
So what, I'm sorry, was the question how
talk-
is like the data collection?
Stats and the data collection and stuff with the new setup.
Yeah, I mean, I find the platform really easy to use for ILL. I mean, there's literally I mean, you guys, Michael, you might know more about this, but like I literally can click on several, they're basically like built into the platform. I can just click on it and it will provide me with a lot of the data information that I need. And I've also learned, and for those of you who work with OCLC, they're really great at answering our questions. So like if you send out an email to someone directly, or if you have like a question about data that doesn't get solved through like their dashboard, they're really good about getting back to us.
Yeah, OCLC has a lot of reports that are available to you. There's an overview report, there's a borrower and lender report, there's some comprehensive reciprocal borrowing data. There's a lot out there, and you can filter it by dates, by months, by however you want to grab that data. So it is out there and it is available.
Yeah, I do the reporting for an institution, and I've always felt the stats to be, sufficient for our needs.
I
For
will tell you
analyzing it.
one thing. I always report my every month. I go into the reports, but I wait until like the 10th of the month to make sure that everything from the previous month is accurate and in there. So if you're going to look for a previous month, wait until the 10th. And then you'll get accurate results.
Mhm.
Hi, Sue. Would you be willing to share your marketing materials that give us ideas on how to market ILL?
I don't have any to share now, but I would be happy to. I like playing in Canva and designing new things. Now we have a marketing department on campus, and they created the bookmark for me. So they have the files for that. I don't have that. I don't have those files, but anything else I have, yeah, my social media posts, the Facebook, whatever we have, I like playing with that. So I would be more than happy to share that with you.
I would say there was a session yesterday on visualizing ILL data that I attended that gave me some really good ideas about how you could use, the data to market and drive engagement. So I would recommend grabbing that recording when it's available. There were some really cool ideas.
Stu, so should they email you directly? And
Yeah,
say,
they can. Sure.
Can you put the slide back up that had your email, all of your contact information?
I think our contact information is down below as
Yeah, it
well
should be.
under our
Oh,
profile.
I
Mhm.
forgot. Any more questions? It looks like all the questions have been answered in the room.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for listening
Great.
to us.
Thank
Yeah,
you
and
for attending, everyone.
yeah, we hope this helped.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. The recording will be available, not immediately after, but we will do the captions. So you'll maybe a week later, we'll get an email. And you can also continue the Q&A and the chat in Whova. That doesn't go away. You can keep talking there. And thank you for attending. And if you could complete the post-session survey, that would be helpful too.